Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something really fascinating. Today we're going to tackle those massive movements that pop up throughout history, like revolutions, religions, even those really intense fan bases.
Oh, yeah, those are fascinating.
We're going deep with Eric Hoffer's The True Believer. It's a book that really gets into the nitty-gritty of why people join up and what makes these movements tick.
Interesting.
So Hoffer, he's got this bold claim right out of the gate. He says, doesn't matter if we're talking a new religion or a trending hashtag on Twitter. He says mass movements, they share some uncanny similarities.
Oh,
He actually says, and I quote, all mass movements generate in their adherents a readiness to die and a proclivity for united action.
wow.
Intense, right?
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. What I think is really interesting, though, is that he's not just talking about, something that happened way back when, some historical footnote. He's saying these patterns, they repeat through all of history.
Yeah.
And understanding those patterns, that gives you a real edge in understanding, well, the world today, even what might be coming next.
It's like having a decoder ring for human behavior.
Yeah.
So, okay. So who are these people then who are signing up for these movements? It's easy to just assume, oh, it's the poorest or the most desperate, the ones with nothing left to lose.
Right, right.
But Hoffer, he throws us a curveball here.
Okay.
He says, it's often people who just feel like their lives are, I don't know, wasted in a way, like they missed their shot. And that feeling, well, that can hit anyone, anywhere, anytime.
It really can. And you see, it's not just about economic hardship. Hoffer argues that it's this feeling of having missed your chance, of your life being, well, wasted, really, that creates this yearning for change. I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you be more likely to embrace a radical idea if you felt like, well, you had nothing to lose?
That's a really good point, that feeling of, well, things can't get much worse, might as well go for it.
Exactly.
But then there's that other side of it too, right? Why would anyone willingly give up their individuality, even their life, for a movement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Hoffer argues that for the frustrated, for those who feel lost and insignificant, shedding their individual identity and kind of merging with a larger group, it's an escape.
Yeah.
It's a way to break free from the burden of their own perceived inadequacy. It's almost comforting in a way to let go of the self and become part of something bigger.
That's like trading in a heavy, ill-fitting suit for a uniform.
Right.
Even if it's a little scratchy, at least it makes you feel like you belong.
Yes.
And you know what? Hoffer, he uses this really interesting analogy of a living dog and a dead lion to illustrate this.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. It perfectly illustrates this idea of escaping the burden of self.
Yeah.
He asks, why is a living dog better than a dead lion? A living dog, even if it's small and kind of insignificant, still has that spark of life, a sense of possibility. A dead lion, no matter how mighty it once was, is gone. Its potential extinguished.
Wow.
So for those who feel lost and insignificant, attaching themselves to a movement, even at the cost of their individual lives, it offers them a taste of that symbolic, that lion-like power.
It's like saying, hey, I may be a nobody now, but as part of this movement, I can be part of something much bigger than myself, something that will live on even after I'm gone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but let's be real. We can't ignore the role of hate in all of this. Like Hoffer, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He says straight up, hatred, it's a powerful unifier. Movements, they often define themselves by their enemies, by who they're against.
Yeah, it's true.
And he uses this chilling example, actually. It's this Japanese mission. And they were sent to study the Nazi Party in Germany back in 1932.
Wow.
And their response,
it's magnificent. We wish we could have something like it in Japan, only we can't because we haven't got any Jews.
wow, that's chilling.
It really is.
And it's a chilling example of how these movements can exploit hate, for their own ends.
Right. But what's even more intriguing, I think, is Hoffer's observation that this hatred, it often masks a hidden admiration.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, think about it. These movements, they often end up imitating their enemies. They adopt their tactics, even their ideologies.
So it's like this strange, twisted form of flattery.
In a way, yeah. It's like saying, we hate you, but we also kind of want to be you.
Yeah.
It's a strange paradox, isn't it?
It really is.
But it's something we see play out time and time again in history.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what does it say about human nature that even our darkest impulses can be strangely compelling?
It's like we're hardwired to be drawn to these kinds of things, even when we know better.
It really is.
It's like we're drawn to the drama of it all, even if it's, well, kind of scary at the same time. But how does all of this, translate into, like, a real force for change?
Yeah.
We've got the frustration, the desire for something more, even the hate. But how does a movement, like, actually gain momentum?
Well, Hoffer, he lays out this really interesting framework for this. He calls them the 3 stages of a mass movement. It's like a recipe almost.
Okay, so what are the ingredients for this recipe?
Okay, so first, you need your intellectuals. They're the thinkers, right?
Wow.
The ones who come up with the big ideas, point out all the flaws in the system. And then they're the ones who offer that vision of something better.
They're like the architects, right? Drawing up the blueprints for this new world.
Exactly. But you need more than just blueprints, right? You can't just have an idea on paper.
Right.
That's where the fanatics come in. They're the ones who take those ideas and turn them into this burning passion, They preach the absolute truth of the doctrine, demand total unwavering loyalty, and inspire incredible self-sacrifice. They're the fuel to the movement's fire.
So if the intellectuals are the architects, the fanatics are the ones firing everyone up to actually start building.
Precisely. But to turn that initial, burst of energy into something lasting, something solid, you need that final ingredient. Men of action.
Okay.
Oh, the builders, the organizers, the ones who solidify the movement and turn it into a real force.
They're the ones who take that raw passion, that fire, and channel it into something concrete, right? They build institutions, establish the rules, figure out how to, like, grab hold of power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, and here's the catch that Hoffer points out, as movements gain power, that initial spark, that pure idealism, it often starts to fade.
Because, well, suddenly they're the ones in charge now, right?
Right.
And they have to figure out, okay, how do we actually govern? How do we make the trains run on time? And that's a whole different ball game from just rallying the troops, isn't it?
It is. And that's when pragmatism sets in. Bureaucracy takes root. And the movement, once a force for radical change, can become part of the very establishment it sought to overthrow.
It's such a human paradox, isn't it? The things we create often end up being the things that trap us. It's like, be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
Because you just might get it. But even if a movement, even if it doesn't become totally corrupted, like we were saying, there's still this chance that it loses its way a little. Like, it becomes more about, keeping things the same rather than actually pushing for real change.
Yeah, and that's what Hoffer wants us to think about. Even the quote-unquote good movements, right?
Yeah.
The ones that are fighting for what seem like noble causes, they aren't immune to this. Think about the French Revolution, for example.
Okay, yeah.
Started with these lofty ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity.
Right.
But then, well, it also led to the Reign of Terror.
Right.
A period of violence and bloodshed that consumed, well, many of its own leaders even.
It's a good reminder that progress, well, it isn't always a straight line, is it? There can be a lot of destruction, a lot of chaos along the way.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Hoffer, he throws another curveball at us when he starts talking about the role of outside forces in, like sparking change.
Oh, interesting.
He suggests that sometimes it takes some kind of external influence, something coming from outside the system, to really, to shake things up, like to create the conditions for a new movement to come out of that.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that sometimes a system can't change from within. It needs that kind of external force, a catalyst, to really disrupt the status quo and kind of create that space for something new to take hold. Think about it like a pressure cooker, right?
That's right, yeah.
Things are already simmering, tensions are building, and then that external pressure comes along and boom.
Things boil over.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got a movement. It makes you wonder, like, what are those pressure points in the world today? What are those issues that are just simmering below the surface, just waiting for, for the right spark to ignite them?
That's the question Hoffer leaves us with, I think. He wants us to really look around at the world, at the movements that are, gaining traction, at the ideas that are capturing hearts and minds, and to ask ourselves, like, what's really driving them? Is it a genuine desire for positive change? Or are we just seeing those same patterns of human behavior, that we've been talking about, just playing out on a new stage?
It's like we've been saying this whole time, those deep-seated human needs, the desire for belonging, for purpose, for something to believe in, those needs haven't changed, even if the world around us has, right?
Exactly. And as we, navigate this increasingly complex world, understanding those needs, those kind of primal drives, it's more important than ever.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to see past the surface, to really try to understand the forces that are shaping our world, and maybe, just maybe, to make more informed choices about the movements that we choose to be a part of.
So there you have it. We went deep with Eric Hoffer, explored the fascinating and often, let's be honest, kind of unsettling world of mass movements. We looked at the types of people who join them, those powerful emotions that drive them, and the stages that they go through as they kind of evolve.
Yeah, and we considered those potential pitfalls too, right? The dangers of dogma, the allure of hate, and of course the seductive nature of power.
But most importantly, I think, we've been left with more questions than answers. And I think that's what makes Hoffer's work so compelling, right? It doesn't try to offer these easy solutions, but it gives us this really powerful framework for understanding the faces that are shaping our world.
Absolutely. So next time you see a protest erupt, or a new ideology gaining traction, or even, you know what, even just a viral trend taking over your social media feed.
Right.
Remember what we talked about today.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what's the deeper story here?
What are the motivations?
What's really going on? And what does it tell us about ourselves?
Until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
And keep diving deep.